From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Lebanon, where authorities ordered house arrest for a number of port officials this Wednesday, pending an investigation into the blast that occurred in Beirut on Tuesday.
Authorities requested a compulsory house arrest on those who worked in management of the storage of the ammonium nitrate, which amounted to 2,750 tons. Those who worked on the guarding and safeguarding the files from June 2014 to August 4, 2020. Securing a certain amount of wheat after the damage of the warehouse in the fire, we request the Ministry of Public Works and Transportation to do what is needed to secure the operations of import and export through the port, Bar Beirut port, like Tripoli or Saida.
And the search for survivors of the blast in the Lebanese capital continues as the government declared a state of emergency for the next 2 weeks. International aid has already begun arriving in Lebanon following the devastating blast that plunged the country further into crisis. Over 100 deaths have been reported, while the number of people missing surpasses the casualties so far. Thousands were wounded as the shockwave caused damages to buildings across half of the city. According to reports, the blasts were felt as far away as Cyprus, around 150 miles northwest of the country. The governor of Beirut, Maran Aboud, described the disaster as apocalyptic and estimated that at least 300,000 people were made temporarily homeless, while noting that the recovery efforts would cost the country over $3 billion. The United Nations Secretary General has extended condolences to the Lebanese government and people while reaffirming the organization's support for recovery efforts.
Secretary General expressed his deepest condolences to the families of the victims, as well as to the people and government of Lebanon following the horrific explosions in Beirut. He wishes a speedy recovery to the injured, including several United Nations personnel working in Lebanon. The United Nations remains committed to supporting Lebanon at this difficult time and is actively assisting in the response to this incident.
On Wednesday, the Iranian Red Crescent Society loaded a plane with humanitarian aid for the Lebanese people. The plane is carrying much-needed medical supplies, a medical team and a field hospital to help tackle the emergency sparked by the blasts that occurred in Beirut on Tuesday afternoon. The NGO announced that this was the first of a series of humanitarian aid shipments to be sent to Lebanon.
In regards to what happened yesterday in Beirut, the first shipment of Iranian aid weighing more than 95 tons, including medical items, medical equipment, food, a field hospital, and a medical team of 30 people, will be sent to Beirut.
And Tehran's Asadi Tower lit up with the Lebanese flag and messages of support from Iran to the Lebanese people after the devastating explosions at Beirut port, which reached destruction across the city. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has offered condolences and medical support to the Arab nation. A large fire broke out at a public market in the United Arab Emirates city of Ajman this Wednesday. Local residents reported seeing a cloud of thick and black smoke from the fire that broke out at 6:30 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, civil defense teams rushed to the site in order to control the blaze. Authorities have not reported any injuries so far. According to reports, a nearby hospital was evacuated as a precautionary measure. The cause of the fire remains unknown. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has announced the reimposition of lockdown restrictions in the city of Aberdeen following reports of new COVID-19 cases.
Our travel guidance to people in Aberdeen from today is that you should no longer travel more than 5 miles for leisure or recreational purposes. You may continue to travel for work or education, but we advise against other travel. We're also advising people who are not in Aberdeen not to travel to Aberdeen. Secondly, from today, people in Aberdeen should not go into each other's houses. Extended household groups can continue, but remember these are situations which should only involve one other adult who is living on their own. And finally, we will be introducing regulations, we will publish these later today, requiring all indoor and outdoor hospitality in the city to close by 5 p.m. today.
And we'll be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, the governor of New York declared a state of emergency on Wednesday in the wake of Tropical Storm Isaias. Governor Andrew Cuomo explained that the state of emergency in New York would provide local governments with additional cleanup and operational support. The counties included in the declaration are Bronx, Dutchess, Kings, Nassau, New York, Orange, Putnam, Queens, Richmond, Rockland, Suffolk and Westchester. The governor also announced that he has directed the New York National Guard to mobilize 50 soldiers with vehicles to assist Putnam County officials with storm response cleanup missions and ice and water distribution. As of 7:30 p.m. local time Wednesday, thousands of people in the state remained without power. Cuomo said he would launch an investigation after criticizing utility companies for not adequately planning for the storm. The agreement reached between the Argentinian government of President Alberto Fernandez and its main creditors to restructure more than $65 billion in foreign debt will avoid a default and allow Argentina to begin to recover from the economic crisis. From Buenos Aires, our correspondent Carolina Silvestri has the story.
For the economist Andrés Asiai, the agreement reached between the national government and the big foreign investment funds will avoid a series of judicial accusations and criticism against the country's significant external debt increased by the policies of former President Mauricio Macri.
This agreement brings a release that gives air to this government, especially in these years, and at the same time without conditioning the economic policy. The discussion was reduced to how much you paid and how much you did not, the legal details, but not like the traditional pretension of creditors that alongside the IMF imposed their economic agenda. I think this was a result of how much the government of Alberto Fernandez negotiated this, how they separated the IMF from the private bonists, even put them against each other. This was an effective move.
According to the expert, the debt exchange prevents Argentina from falling in default and also entails a more stable currency exchange rates.
The everyday internal economy will depend on domestic policies, right? It is not going to happen as the previous government thought, that we were going to have a foreign investment shock, because Argentina, despite the renegotiation, it is still in a huge debt. We have the local debt, the one with the IMF. On the other side, we are living in an international crisis, a context of investment crisis. Then there is no expectation that this will promote a boom, right? The positive thing that I see is that the government will pay less attention to the debt and will focus more on developing an economic plan of internal reactivation.
This renegotiation entails savings of millions of US dollars in payments that are now available for other purposes.
In the next 5 years, we will have a significant reduction in capital and interest payments. If you add up this money that is not being paid as debt you have, local and foreign creditors, the public sector and the private sector, you are talking about savings of almost 57 billion US dollars. Obviously, this can be used to pay for the extra burden due to the pandemic, and in the post-pandemic, it could help to go back to a path of economic growth.
Many experts consider this renegotiation as a huge political and economic achievement.
When there is a shortage of US dollars, the Argentinian economy does not grow. If the demand for this currency decreases, there is a bigger probability of economic prosperity.
For the Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez, this agreement brings an opportunity to go back to a path of economic development.
Carolina Silvestre, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
Bolivian de facto President Janine Áñez appointed far-right politician Branko Marinkovic as head of planning and management of foreign aid provided to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The appointment comes in the midst of corruption allegations over the handling of resources to tackle COVID-19 and unconstitutional handling of debts with multilateral organizations by the de facto government without the approval of Bolivia's Plurinational Assembly. Branko faced charges of treason following successionist attempts as well as magnacide during the government of former Bolivian President Evo Morales. He returned to the country in November last year after the coup. And Bolivia's Supreme Electoral Tribunal has called on the Bolivian Workers' Center, the country's chief trade union federation, and other social organizations to return to the negotiating table in a bid to stop the widespread protests over the postponement of the general elections. The court summoned the Bolivian Workers' Center and 6 affiliated organizations of indigenous and rural workers to a meeting this Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Electoral Tribunal reiterated that the elections were moved to October 18th, taking into account the COVID-19 health emergency across the country. The Union Federation announced an indefinite general strike in order to demand the vote be held on the previously agreed date of September 6. And the protests against the postponement of the elections until October 18th continue in Bolivia. Protesters took to the streets in different parts of the south of the city of Cochabamba while blocking main roads and highways connecting to the west of the country. Bolivia has now seen 3 days of demonstrations and roadblocks, heavily affecting traffic and transport. Supporters and opponents of former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe took to the streets on Wednesday to voice their opinions following the Supreme Court's decision to place the senator under house arrest.
This is a national celebration. For a long time we have been waiting for a person like Uribe to be in a process of being arrested.
We hope this is the first step for those investigations to advance, so that former President Álvaro Uribe is responsible and that he pays for the crimes he has committed.
This is an infamy. The FARC narco-terrorists, guilty of committing crimes against humanity, are in Congress making fun of their victims, and a patriot like Uribe is subject to unjust justice.
The heart and soul hurt when justice does not fulfill its purpose, when justice becomes politicized and justice punishes politics. We only ask for justice for Álvaro Uribe Vélez.
And a spokesman for Colombia's Democratic Center political party announced this Wednesday that former Colombian President and current Senator Álvaro Uribe has tested positive for the novel coronavirus.
As spokesman for the Democratic Center in the Senate, we informed the public that President Álvaro Uribe has been diagnosed with COVID-19. However, his state of health is excellent. He has not presented any major symptoms or any breathing difficulties. We wish him a speedy recovery, and from the Democratic Center, we send him a hug of solidarity.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The African continent this Wednesday saw a further fall in the COVID-19 infection rate. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention registered almost 11,000 new coronavirus cases, noting that there has been a steady decline of between 300 and 400 infections per day over the last 3 weeks. Meanwhile, African authorities are calling on the population to comply with prevention measures to avoid further outbreaks and continue to curb the spread of the virus. Angola's government reported another 64 COVID-19 cases on Tuesday, noting the growing spread of the coronavirus in Luanda province. According to the National Director of Public Health, 58 of the 64 new cases are people from different districts of Luanda, which has reported a large number of locally transmitted infections. The remaining patients are from the northern province of Serra. One further COVID-19 fatality was also reported in the capital, bringing the death toll to 59. Meanwhile, authorities reported 27 new recoveries, bringing the total to over 500. Angola has confirmed a total of over 1,300 coronavirus cases since the beginning of the outbreak. Kenyan health authorities reported 671 new COVID-19 cases this Wednesday.
Some 671 people have tested positive from a sample size of 6,200 in the last 24 hours. That means that today Kenya has 23,873 positive cases. Our cumulative tests now stand at 329,123. 633 of those people are Kenyans, while 38 are foreigners.
And Kenyan health authorities also noted that a total of 723 Kenyan health workers have tested positive for COVID-19 since the outbreak of the pandemic.
As of today, we have 723 healthcare workers, 385 of them who are males and 338 females, who have been infected by COVID-19 disease. That is about 3% of the total caseload.
Guinean Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassory Fofana expressed his support this Wednesday for the candidature of current Guinean President Alpha Condé for the presidential elections to be held in October. Prime Minister Fofana appealed to President Condé to contest the election during a two-day convention of the Rally of the Guinean People Party. Meanwhile, Condé has asked the party to allow him time to decide whether to run or not. The president is nearing the end of his second five-year term in office. A recent referendum on amendments to the Guinean constitution prolonged the presidential term from 5 to 6 years.
This is the starting point today for a new, bright and promising future for Guinea and Guineans. We are proud to be the vectors of the new hope for our country and our people.
He is a man of progress, he is a man who's proven himself, and we have seen it. So why not let him work? Why not let him finish the good intentions he has for this country called Guinea, which belongs to all of us?
Marches took place in all major cities of Pakistan on Wednesday in solidarity with residents of Kashmir on the first anniversary of the stripping of the region's special status by the Indian government. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan led a rally in the capital of the Pakistan-administered territory of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Muzaffarabad, where over 2,000 people showed up. The Prime Minister described the Indian government as an oppressor and aggressor while accusing Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi of trying to convert Kashmir's Muslim majority into a minority in violation of UN Security Council resolutions and international law. Pakistan and India both claim sovereignty over Kashmir, a territory which has been split since 1947.
Today, Narendra Modi stands exposed before the world, and the world is looking at Kashmir. They, India, thought they will crush Kashmirs with their atrocities, and they will fear of their genocide.
And at least 33 people were injured in the Pakistani city of Karachi as a result of an attack on a rally organised by members of the Jamaat Islamic political party. According to local police, a motorcyclist threw a grenade at the participants, resulting in an explosion. Meanwhile, Pakistani authorities published a new official map early this week, showing all of Kashmir as Pakistani territory. This Wednesday marks the 60th anniversary of the independence of Burkina Faso. To mark the date, we finished this news brief with a video on revolutionary Thomas Sankara, who served as president of Burkina Faso from 1983 until his assassination in 1987. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website and social media pages. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.